That's a nice place to park. How stupid can you be? You'd almost think it was a puppy whittling. Another nice day, hopefully. Hello to the girls, greetings to the boys. Or greetings to the girls, hello to the boys? I don't know how to do that anymore. I almost only speak Arabic now with my three new words. Yesterday I did some work, if I can call it that, and washed all the riding gear I wear to get the dust out. And I also wiped my shoes a little. It's now ironically dust dry. Now I'm going to get 25 liters of water and continue my journey. I found the entrance of the off-road adventure. I'm going to pick up a little more speed anyway and hope that I can avoid my first fall right away. Done. It's not necessarily the nicest start to the ride, but better dirt under the wheels than that black lump. Once I was already on my way off-road, it occurred to me about 100 meters later, it's not only good to have liquid for me, but also for Atsuru to have a little of the beautiful juice back in his gas tank. And back again, and the reserve light has just come on. Lucky me. I thought ahead. A little late, but better late than never. And now I'll put that good liquid back in. And then I'll get at least another 400 kilometers. And on the way to the fuel station, I also bought a USB cable for 300 dirhams. So €1 and a little bit with my exchange rate. Cause I donated one in the Atlas Mountain to the younger farmer who didn't have one. I do it again. Top edge of the lower lip. I think that's what it is called, isn't it? It's very frugal with the wet stuff anyway for the Zero donkey, but he still needs a little something. You can fill it up perfectly while standing here. Donate a little something to the petrol god. Right, I think we'll leave it at that. How much did he put in? 17.75 liters. But I've just switched to reserve. So that was about 500 meters or maybe a kilometer before the reserve light came on. So I still have at least 2 liters in reserve. That means I've actually built a tank that not only holds 18 liters, but apparently 20, plus minus. That's not bad. You don't want to run on reserve until the last drop anyway. So you can actually calculate with 18 liters and plan your route accordingly. Paid the bill too. I always set both trips to 0. Then I know roughly how far I come. Or at least approximately how much fuel I've used. But I just calculated 4 liters to be on the safe side, and then I can get going.
Merci, shukran.
That's great. Welcome again and again. People are really amazing. As I said, we already have 18 liters, 0.0, so we already have 100 meters less fuel. Let's go, finally. Reach the track in the meantime. And I knew anyway that it goes along the railway. Luckily, you can get through underneath. And now I can finally let it rip again. It was just 5 kilometers less of my off-road ride, but I can just about cope with that. Now it's time to get used to the maximum weight again. I had another local farmer who said I couldn't ride through his property and continue along the railway line. I had to go back to the main road, so I continued in that direction. But one advantage, for example, is the electricity masts and power lines. They are always a good indicator because they don't put themselves up. Ergo, there are usually paths somewhere, and I have the railway in front of me again. And here comes a dog. Now we have to let it pass slowly. We can really step on the gas again. The point, when looking for the path, I think I can remember that there is a beautiful bridge. And then down below there is a valley, which I don't think I can get down easily. And above all, back up again. I've drawn the path so that I'll eventually arrive back on the other side. Now we are already ridden around this canyon. I actually mapped out a U-turn like this. You can't see any of it now with the light, but you can see the bridge back there. I'm now riding back down towards the railway line, then left again, setting indicator and continue the chase. Most of the way is really fast today. You can definitely leave the throttle open for a while. Despite all that, I'm glad that I have got to know myself so well by now and am not riding with 90 horsepower, because then I'd probably be doing 160 at times. That's a whole different level. With a little one there, 120 on the Speedo is already a lot. It's 10% off. And so the top speed is still manageable. And yes, 100 is enough to zip along on the gravel anyway. Especially when you look at the whole day. It's of course much more dangerous to ride forward looking 150 off-road. And that's actually enough for me. Fifth six, because the front tire isn't really that keen to hold the track anyway. But it's nice to roll along quickly. You feel like a Dakar racer, and that's enough. There were a few short sections, about 30 meters or so, where the water had played a part again. There wasn't any water there, but it had washed away a little. You just have to jog through it a bit, enduro trail style. But it's all baby easy now that I've already mastered in Italy, riding terrain with light field pack, and then also on the first stages in the Atlas Mountains. And as I said, you can really rush through there and maybe get a little closer to the day's goal in the sense of 300 kilometers per day. Let's see how it goes and if it stays this fast or if it gets more technical again. There's the pass, and the farmer thought he'd block the field this year. I'll ride around it and then continue on my way. I've taken a short break and had a look around the moped, and lo and behold, the screw is gone. It's not dramatically, but it's always good to check, no mistake. Then I'll take another piece of wire, and in the evening I'll dig out my screws and fix it. Because you definitely need a speedo to know what speed we are going. I'll fix it now, then I'll get going again. I've almost done the first 100 today. That means we can tackle the next 100. It's nice and warm again. What does my thermometer say? Well, just under 40 degrees, probably about 35. I think it was 1 o'clock in the evening. Right, I'll fix that now and then we continue. The speedo cable now is professionally fixed. I've also tied down the luggage a bit as I was riding a bit faster and it was rattling around quite a bit. Tied down straps aren't the best after all. A quick check here and there won't be wrong. Let's tackle it. So, first conclusion. I don't think engine power matters much. What's essential? If you happen to miss a pump or a pothole, is the suspension. The fork from the original KLX isn't too bad for what the whole moped cost, or rather still costs where it is still available. I myself have added 5mm spacer to give it a little more spring preload, but my fork springs was only 413mm long and not 415 as it's the original. Then I used a slightly thicker oil and made the air chamber smaller, so that it would be less likely to bottom out. That works really well. And what else did I do? At some point I had it coated black. It's not the DLC coating. For me it was less about performance and more about the color, because I wanted everything to be black. Apart from the suspension, in which I would invest considerably more money than in engine performance or similar, a steering damper is essential, indispensable in sand, especially with luggage. You can simply tighten the steering damper and then it's much nicer to ride. I can really see my track again, so to speak. It's a bit of a trial and error process until you find the actual route you've mapped out. But it's actually quite doable. It's not like a field suddenly crosses the road. Yes, as I said, I think the suspension is much more important than engine power, because only the pros can manage 160 all day long. The suspension helps avoiding going over the handlebars if you do miss a pothole or two. I finally made it. I thought to myself, today will be a drop-free day. But in too slowly and plop. Well, I'll draw the line better. That was a double unnecessary fall, because I could have continued on the path about 100 meters earlier. It was a 90-degree corner. Then I would have avoided the fall. I have to cross the gap somewhere, because I obviously failed to turn off in time earlier. And now I'm on the wrong side. I already have an idea, but I'm not sure yet whether I'll go for it. That looks 100 times better than the one from earlier. Now we'll make an elegant turn to get in there properly. Where was that again? Ah, yes, there it is. And over there, just up again with momentum. So without really having to worry, you have to be a little careful precisely because of holes like this. Now just find a reasonable track where you can get just through. In my case, for example, that would be there. Right, and that is for now. I'm almost convinced now that the line I draw on Google Earth was parallel to the Wadi. so that it was the wadi and not a route. Oh, the route is over there. We are riding cross country the whole time. We can't get through anywhere anyway. That means I have to go down somewhere and get back on the actual route over there. That's how I see it now. Or I ride up and then down. That's a nice place to park. How stupid can you be? You'd almost think it was a puppy whittling. That was exactly the way. If I could have spared myself picking it up twice, I would have looked down there again in time and realized that I should have turned left. On the other hand, I don't know if I would ever have ridden up this hill again, or if I'll ever get around to riding up it. So at least I can put a hook in there. I've done that. Look at that, look at that. It's even wet there. There must be too much water somewhere. I hope I can make it through now. Of course, I'm riding a little off course. I don't want to get stuck in the mud, so to speak. It's possible to ride through, but it's not necessary. I hope it's not too deep there. I'm slowly feeling my way in. Well, as I said, I'm not so keen with water. I've completely submerged a moped twice in Thailand. Since then, it's somehow not my favorite thing riding a moped. A bit of sand again, with momentum. I think you learn knee contact at driving school at some point, if you were there. Of course, I've got the right tires for the sand again. That's definitely an advantage. But yes, it works. After all, the locals ride their mopeds there with normal road tires. Maybe a bit slower. Navigate, turn right. I've already closed the steering damper as far possible. No, not quite. Here come my friends again. If you're slow enough, it's not so bad. But I thought to myself, maybe I'll ride back to the petrol station after all. And yes, it's 3:30 and have a coffee. And if it doesn't help, it doesn't hurt. So far today, I'd say 96.5% off-road. Just out of the city, the rest was off-road. That's how it should be. And I imagine it's the highest amount of full throttle so far on my trip. Because there were some tracks where you could really let it rip. There was a big BMW GS 1250 parked next to me earlier, and the gentleman was just about to move on, and of course we started talking again. We exchanged numbers, and if I need anything, I can get in touch right away. It's so amazing, this culture, this hospitality. It's a dream. Of course, they know you're a tourist, you can see that. But despite all that, it isn't normal that then you.
Hello? What's up? You fine? Yeah, I have to go on.
Now I go in Algeria. Where are you going?
The final destination is